Hello guys and welcome back. So for those who are returning subscribers, y'all already know y'all are some real ones, real OGs. I really appreciate y'all. For those who are new to the channel, welcome. My name is Faithful Lobby and I post videos every week on topic related to money, mindset, and business from a personal perspective and personal experience in order to open up the conversation. Now for my returning subscribers, you guys can see we got someone chilling with us, young mogul in the building. And what we're going to be talking about today is real estate. So I'm going to have David over here introduce himself and kind of give you guys a little background. So Mr. David, take it away.
Okay, cool. My name is David. Currently investing in real estate. Right now I have about 5 properties right now.
Sheesh. Yeah. 5, y'all, that's crazy.
But looking to get into more of commercial later on down the line, hopefully by the end of the year. I'm also an engineer full-time, so I try to find some time to balance the two, and then also like business in general. I like a lot what Faithful talks about as far as business goes, so yeah, I think we're on the same path as far as mindset and everything like that.
Yes, sir. So guys, he's being humble, y'all. But as you guys can see, we're in the same position, right? We're both engineers. He's definitely advanced himself way further than I feel like most of the people I know are currently doing. And this is where the wealth and the knowledge can be shared. And really what we want to bring to y'all is currently, because I can't talk about real estate from my personal experience, being that I haven't been involved yet, but he could really give us a lot of dialogue diving into more real estate and kind of being that the FOMO of real estate is going on right now, really what to look out for, how to really get in from an everyday perspective. I'm gonna go ahead and ask you, David, how did you get into real estate? What made you realize that, like, yo, I wanna invest, I wanna be a landlord?
So I think it started off probably when I was young. So both of my parents are both in the real estate industry. My dad started off as a real estate agent back before the 2000s.
Oh, wow.
And so he's been in the game for a long time, and then he became a broker. When he became a broker, had his own business. My mom, she left her tax office and then went to join my dad to help with the mortgage side of the business. So I've kind of been around it. I used to go around with my dad, showing houses and a lot like that. Back then, I didn't like it at all. But as I got older, I remember when I was at school at PV, there was a teacher that I talked to, Dr. Vesey, and he had his own kind of impromptu class where he was talking about real estate, and I was like, wow, like people in real estate make money. And so at the time it was I did my engineering stuff, and by the time I was going through engineering and all these internships, I was like low key, I don't think I can do this for 30 years.
Right.
Cause you start talking to people on the floor. You start talking to people on the floor that's been in the business for a long time. You're like, yeah, I've been here for 30 years. Like, what?
What, that long?
Same place for 30 years?
It's crazy.
I was like, nah, man, I can't do it. So at that time already, before I met Dr. Vesey, I was really trying to learn more about real estate. I was watching HGTV, watching flips, and I heard him talk. And then as soon as I graduated, it was like, yeah, I got to get on this real fast. And so when I was talking to him and learned all the information, I went back to my parents and was like, yo, I need to start schooling me all this. So that's when I first got started. And so I started my junior year of college. And I think it was after maybe my 3rd internship that I had. So I had a bit of bread saved up, and then I put that towards my first property.
The barrier for entry in real estate is very high.
Yeah.
So how were you able to accumulate that money to save up in order to get that first property?
Yeah, I mean, so everybody has to start from somewhere.
Right.
I mean, everybody doesn't have an engineering job. Some people are different majors. Some people have, minimum wage jobs. So the first thing is saving up bread. Right. The way I did it, luckily for me, I chose engineering, and engineering is a pretty good paying job.
You know what I'm saying?
And so what I was doing, I saved. So my first internship, I splurged.
That
was the first time I ever spent money like that. So I was like,
lifestyle inflation, guys. I talked about
I was like, because I saw your episode where you just talked about that lifestyle inflation. I was like, that's fast. Once you start getting that first big chunk of money, it's like you buying everything you didn't have. So I got used to that, and so thankful for that experience. I kind of got the urge out early, and so when my next internship came, I started saving more, and then my 3rd internship, I kept saving. And so I had enough money to go and put it down towards the house. And then luckily, or not luckily, but the house wasn't very expensive at all. So I didn't have to come out like my whole bank account just to go get it.
So walk me through, how did you go about finding this property? Like, what are the steps? Because try and bring some understanding to the bigger picture.
Okay. So the way I found the first property was through my dad. So since my dad's a broker, when I expressed my involvement or me wanting to go into real estate a bit more, then he started searching and trying to find something that could fit me. So it was really him that helped me find it. So my first property was somebody that was going under foreclosure.
Oh, wow.
So for those that don't know, foreclosure, basically you're not paying your mortgage on time, and the lender or whoever you're getting money from to pay for the house, they'll give you some time to pay that loan back. And so it's called a redemption period. And so throughout that redemption period, a lot of investors, what they'll do is they'll go in and say, hey, I don't want you to foreclose on your property because it's going to affect your credit. They're going to kick you out. You ain't got nowhere to go. Right. So it's a whole bunch of bad stuff that can happen if you don't, if they foreclose on your property. So you go there basically solving a problem. It's just like engineering. You go there to solve a problem. So in this situation, all we have to do is just give them money and say, hey, we'll help you move out. We'll help you find a new spot. Any moving things, we can help you out, and then we'll take over the house.
So it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, so it's a win-win situation because she doesn't get her credit affected. She finds a nice place to stay. She has a little cash in her pocket. So, and then for me, I get a property now, and so I was able to get it for $70,000. And so whenever you get your first house, and it's for everybody. When you get your first house, you can put as low as 5% down if you're doing a commercial loan.
Wait, what? Repeat that again, because that's a gem people really need to kind of hear.
So I think that's one of the misconceptions that people think in their mind too, that you gotta have 100, 200,000 cash,
20% down, right?
Or even 20% down too. Like, you don't have to do that. The only time it applies as far as 20% down is if it's an investment property. If you've already stayed in the house already, or your homestead property where you're staying at your house, then the next few properties that you buy, have to be 20%. But if you're getting your first house, you can put 5% down.
5%, guys.
Yeah. There's also other programs out there too, depending on what your financial situation is. There's FHA, where you can put as low as 3.5% down, and then there's also VA and USDA. So VA is Veteran Affairs, which is basically people who served in the military, so they can put as low as 0% down.
Oh, wow.
And then you have people for the USDA, which is Department of Agriculture. They want to encourage people to buy in the farmlands too. So, if there's anybody who's been to a place like PV, PV is in the middle of nowhere. Well, it's not in the middle of nowhere, but it's in the country. It's in the country. And so a place like PV would qualify for a USDA loan. So if somebody wants to buy real estate at PV, as long as they qualify financially, they can go and buy it, 0% down.
Guys, knowledge. This is for free, y'all. All y'all gotta do is hit the like and subscribe button. That's it.
Free game.
Free game. We'll give y'all free game. Okay, so now that you had your first property, how were you able to scale to go from 1 to 5, and how long did that take? Help us put some context to that. So what age was your first property? How did you, what age you get to 5? How did you get to 5?
So my first one was maybe summer 2016.
Okay.
2016, yeah. And then my fifth one I just bought last year, which was 2019. So now, thinking back now, that was pretty quick to go from 2016 to 2019.
In 3 years, 5 properties at 25 years old, guys.
So the method that I did was, it's called the BRR Strategy.
Okay.
So if anybody who follows Bigger Pockets, they have what do you call it when you have BRR? It's called the BRR Strategy.
BRR.
So BRR.
Like Gucci here.
So basically, after my first property, I saved up some more bread and was able to get my second one. The second one I got was right after Hurricane Harvey. So what happened? Yeah. So although the situation was bad, but there was a lot of opportunity to come out of that as well. And so I was able to get a house out in Katy for pretty low. I think it was maybe even half of its value before the hurricane happened. And I was able to get that. And so what I started doing was the BRR Strategy. So BRR stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. So I can go into detail a little bit more if you want. But yeah, that's what I did basically, and I was able to get the next house and then the next one.
Yeah. Let's might as well just dive into the details of it.
All right. So first, when you buy a house, usually you're not gonna pay out cash unless you got it like that. So when you get your first house, you're buying a house, and you're gonna put 20% down.
Okay.
So we're assuming that you've already purchased your house first, your first house, and now you're buying an investment property. Okay. So you're gonna put 20% down, and the bank is gonna give you 80%. Okay. So that's the loan to value ratio, LTV. All right. So once you buy the house for 20% down, you're gonna put, let's say, $20,000 to fix it up to kind of bring the value up. It's called forced depreciation. Okay. Okay. So you make it modern, make it look nice, and then you go and refinance again. Okay. Once you refinance, let's say the value of the house now is $200,000. Okay. So they're gonna give you the same 80% LTV on that new value. So you'll take the difference of the two, and you'll get the profit, and then you'll put it towards the next house. Oh. Yeah. And so right in between, I skipped a step too. Right before you refinance, you're also running the property out too. So you're also you're also cash flowing. And you're also showing that it's an asset. It's a flowing asset. You're getting cash flow from it. So, wow. Yeah, it helps a lot. Yeah.
And that's how you went from 1 to 5.
So that's how I went from 2 to 5. Yeah. 2 to 5. I was just doing the BRR strategy, just buying, fixing it up, renting it out, refinancing, and then repeating it.
So for those who are actually in real estate and actually are at that step, how do you know when you're not? How do you make sure you're not over leveraged?
Over leveraged how?
Over leveraged from the case of always having to refi that loan and having the equity being pulled out of it.
That's probably one of the, I guess, the negative parts about refinancing. Okay. And I think it's just one of the things that you have to kind of gauge depending on your investment strategy. Okay. So with me, one thing that I also notice when you refinance too is that your cash flow isn't always going to be there. So if I bought it at $100,000 like we talked about earlier, you know, my cash flow is probably going to be crazy because I'm probably getting $600, $700, $800 a month. But if I refinance at a new value, I now owe a new mortgage now. So that $800 profit at first, maybe $200, $300. And, you know.
Let's say I'm watching this video right now, and I'm getting excited about real estate. I'm like, I'm ready to hop in this thing, man. So like, what are the ways you go about finding properties online, or even what are some of the stuff that you look at to make sure a property is a good property?
Okay. So it depends on your investment strategy. Number one, if you're going in to flip, one thing that I do or that I look at is the type of area that it's in, of course. You know, if you talk to anybody about real estate, they're always going to say location. Location is the most important thing when it comes to real estate. If you go downtown, of course, you're going to be paying a higher amount of money. If you go outside the skirt, you're probably going to pay a lower amount of money. So what I look at is what is the opportunity here. So let's say, take this neighborhood, for example. You drove around, it's not the best neighborhood, but I'm betting on the fact that in the next 10 to 20 years that it's going to look a lot nicer than it is now. Why do you think that? That's probably the question you'll think. So number one, it's right by Richardson. Richardson is always, it's a pretty good area. Same with Plano. Mesquite's pretty nice. Garland isn't really one of those popping places that people think about. So when you think about the life cycle of real estate, it always goes from, the cheap real estate to high value because of, what's it called? Gentrification, thank you. Yeah, so gentrification will happen. So the way you got to kind of think about it is all about timing. So, if I see that a neighborhood is low, on the low end, if you're able to live there, then do it. Yeah, because in the next 10 to 20 years, people like investors. There's always going to be investors, so they're going to be looking for the next investment to make. So they say, everywhere's all fixed up except Garland. Let me go put money in Garland and raise the value up.
So now let's say we see on Instagram and YouTube some of these guys, no money down. You could make $20,000 off of real estate without owning a single property. You could go in, just flip, and so I really want us to get on to breaking up how are ways you can make money into real estate outside of just investments, property. So talking about wholesaling, fixing flips, and kind of touch on those.
There's a lot. There's a lot of ways. And that's why I really like real estate too, because you can attack from anywhere. So you can start off as a lawyer. in real estate. You talked about it earlier, wholesaler, flipper.
So let's break those down a little bit. So what's a wholesaler, what's a flipper, what's an investor? What makes those all different?
Yeah, so a wholesaler is somebody who goes in, they'll find a property. They kind of have the hat of a flipper, but they don't usually have the funds to go ahead and make the flip. So what they'll do is they'll find a property, let's say that it's undervalued or it's not up to par. They'll go in, they'll make a deal with the owner, and what they'll do is they'll sell the contract to the investor. So the contract, basically, you have what's it called, equitable title. Whenever you sign an offer, so you have equitable title, go and market the property. So whenever you buy a house, you have an inspection period, usually 7 days, 14 days, depending on the agreed upon. That's always negotiable. So you have that time period. Wholesalers use that time period to go and market the property. Say, hey, I got this house for $100,000. If you put $20,000 in, it's gonna be worth $200,000. If it's attractive to an investor, they're gonna buy it on it and then sell it. And so you as the wholesaler, you take your part out of that deal. Yeah.
So what makes a flipper different? What I know we watch, most of us watch HGTV and we see the glamour and the amazing life of flipping, but how is that world kind of in the real world?
Flipping is a lot harder than it looks, especially dealing with contractors. A lot of times when you're dealing with contractors, especially if they're not like one of the top tier. So as an investor, you want to put as little in as much as possible and get the most out. I mean, we all want to be like that. It's all about being efficient. How can I put the least amount of work in to get the most out? And so what most investors do, they'll find some contractors, either they're at Home Depot or things like that, and they'll try to find people who are charging as low as possible but can still do good work. The problem with that is that a lot of times those contractors, some of them aren't really reliable sometimes. If you have somebody who's not, well, you're supposed to have somebody that's licensed, but some people go for people that aren't licensed, which is not supposed to happen. So a case would be, so the second property I had, it was right after Hurricane Katrina, and since there was so much demand for contractors, because people were doing the same thing I was doing, my contractors were leaving.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was paying, I think my flip took about 6 months.
That had to be way.
It was hurting. I had money coming out every month, and I was waiting for them to come back. And that's when my dad was helping me a lot, trying to find contractors. And so I think that's one of the biggest hurdles you have to kind of overcome when you're working as a flipper, just being able to manage contractors. So one of the other things compared to other ones, you have to have time. Right. Yeah. So since I moved out here to Dallas, and I still have my full-time job, it's kind of hard to do flips like I really want to, because I know it's going to take time, unless it's like a cosmetic thing. Yeah. But if it's a true flip, it's going to require a whole bit of time. And so that, and then you also have to be able to manage costs. Yeah, a lot of things happen. I mean, usually when you walk down a property, you think you have the numbers, but things always happen. You skip out on some things, and then the margins that you had aren't always the best.
Yeah, actually, crazy you brought that up about cost. One of my friends actually just did one of her first flip in Florida, and they actually broke even. They didn't actually make any money due to the fact that the time it took for them to actually remodel took a little longer than usual, and also the time it was actually on the market for it took a lot longer, and that's what ate into all their budget. And one of the other things that ate into one of your budget is the windows. Being that it's Florida, you needed like specific hurricane shelter windows, and it's kind of like that wasn't factored into the budget of expense, and it's little stuff like that, and it's really like the planning and everything. It was her first flip, but it was like she learned a lot from that one. But it takes a lot of just doing, guys. Getting in there and really just doing, but trying to get as much knowledge as you can before you go in there, so you could limit the amount of mistakes, and that's what we hope to bring for y'all.